everybody, and welcome to another 80s golden age of comedy. I'm your host, Bruce Starr. Goodness gracious, I think we are way over 50 shows now. Who would believe it? With some of the top talent in the entire world, some of the funniest people, some friends, some clients of mine when I was a personal appearance agent in Los Angeles during the 80s, representing some Howie Mandel. Are you listening? You have to come on the show. Oh, well. Murray Langston's been on the show, and I'm looking forward to having more and more people be on this show to help record comedic history. And so when I interview these folks, some people I know, some I don't know, this is all about creating a mini documentary every time that I do a show to help record history. And today is no different. What's unusual for me is my next guest, my guest in today's show, is someone that we were in the building together, possibly at the same time, but we just didn't know each other. I think because, God bless him, he's a bunch of years younger than I am and maybe didn't really know him or didn't see him on stage. But Jaime Monroy, welcome to the show. I'm glad to have you on to talk about your history, your memories about what it was like back in the 80s and into the 90s for you in the world of comedy. So welcome to the show.
Hey, Bruce, so good to see you again. It's been a lot of years. And because we are in show business, I made a marker for you here.
Woohoo!
It says 80s, golden age of comedy. Our director, Bruce Starr.
Lift it up a little bit. Lift it up a little bit. There you go.
With today's guest, me, Jaime Monroy.
Perfect. Thank you for that.
Good to see you in sunny. I'm in sunny Southern California here, and our studio where we're having to develop more online streaming. And it's so good that you've taken the initiative to really bring us all back together in the 21st century.
Well, you know, it started out with me just interviewing a couple of people who had written some books. And because I was out of the business for so long, I called on some people that weren't the biggest stars and were needing a little press and publicity and promotion for their books. And then, you know, after I interviewed some of those great people, Lois Bromfield, Joey Kamen, and Joey suggested Willie Tyler and Lester. And I did a show with them, and I just did another show with them yesterday to talk more about the 80s golden age of comedy. But it's been an amazing thing to hear people's personal stories. If you and I were at the Improv at the Comedy Store, there's no way we'd be talking about your personal difficulties, your challenges to make it in show business. And on this show, that's what we do. We talk about, gosh, how did you actually make it in such a tough business? So, Jaime, tell me about where you were born, your family life, and if your family life had anything to do at all with you getting into the business.
Well, you know, that's what makes your series so engaging. As I was talking to Bob Saget recently, and I told him, you know, how through this medium and these interviews, we're learning about really behind the laughter. You know, when we saw each other at the clubs, and it's like you see another comic, hey, you been on yet? Yeah, good crowd, or oh, bad crowd, or gee, I wish I could have worked this bit better and it sucked, but maybe I'll have a better shot at it tomorrow night. You know, there wasn't any chit chat of like, well, how's your family life? You know, or where did you come from? Other than, hey, you know, I hail from Boston. In my case, I'm from Lincoln Heights, East Los Angeles. And that's in the second major city in America. And it is predominantly the Hispanic community. Yo soy Latino. And my name is Alejandro Delgado. And, you know, I had this dream about going to Hollywood very early.
Oh, tell me about that, because being Latin in Los Angeles, there's been, it was a lot harder back then than it is now. So you had to forge even more of a special path. Did your family have anything to do? Did they help you, hinder you from getting into the business?
Well, what made it how I had to embark on it really is because, well, I when I started school, it was a Monday, and hey, by Wednesday there was rumblings by the teachers. This kid's a problem. By Friday, my parents were called. That's it. Come to the principal's office. We got a problem here. And my parents were horrified because my dad went to private school for 12 years from Laredo, Texas, a very well-educated, articulate guy, handsome like you. And my mother, the Spanish beauty, the Shixa from Guadalajara, she was very classy, model type, and her and my dad forged onto becoming a team as husband and wife, and then I came in the picture. So they were horrified that this quiet, sweet boy was in any kind of trouble so quickly. And they came to the appointment, and there I was sitting in the room, and the teacher said, "Let me tell you, he doesn't respond to the questions that the teachers ask him. At playtime, recess, he doesn't interact with the other kids. They just beat him up, and he's causing fights and problems. And, you better talk to him or he's not going to be able to stay here." And then my parents looked at me in Spanish and asked me why I was doing all this. And I looked at my parents and said, "I don't know what they're saying. I don't speak English."
Wow.
And that was the epiphany. They said, "Oh, well, he doesn't understand. We thought because this is a school that you're going to teach him English." And this is before ESL,
Right.
English as a second language. They had that in school. So basically, the teachers and the principal, the blood drained from their face. They were very apologetic. And they said, "We didn't know that he didn't speak English and understand what we were asking him. That's why he was quiet. That's why he didn't respond."
Wow.
And the other kids thought he was the oddball out and just thought he was easy to just kind of pounce on. And especially in that neck of the woods, unfortunately, the barrios do have some wonderful families, that have our culture of food, our culture of spending time together. And there's Lincoln Park with a big lake and a fountain. And you can actually rent little boats and pedal them. And then there's another element to the disenfranchised, to the boys and some of the girls that don't feel like they fit in. And so they make their own world, which is driven by gangs and drugs and violence. And I was raised very clearly not to follow that path. Be something better than that, son. And I hold true to have always tried to make my parents as proud as possible, and I'm glad that I have. For Pete and Lola, they're my heroes. I've worked with the biggest stars in the world. I've met 3 presidents. Do I have more honor and do I value more than my mom and dad, Pete and Lola? Just great people.
And they're still here with you, and still your biggest fans.
For as long as it would. I lost my dad young, to be honest, and then I recently lost my mom, Lola. But it was a friendship that continues now on a spiritual level, and she came to all my performances, and my dad worked hard. But the teachers told my parents, "Look, what you can do is have him watch TV. This is how he can learn English. Okay, pick up some words, pick up some phrases, and now that we know, we'll be more, understanding and helpful with your son." So, my parents parked me in front of the TV, and you see commercials, and then a movie came on. And I liked this movie because the guy was kind of like me. He didn't talk. He just made funny faces, and he made people laugh. And then when the gang was coming after him and they took a swing, he would duck and run. And I was laughing, and I felt like included. I found my place. The movie was a Charlie Chaplin movie called The Kid.
Wow.
And so I started applying these tactics to survive in school. When the gang members came after me, and shoved me around and make a funny face, or if they took a swing, I duck and run, and this is how I survived, and I just realized that this is something that I want to do when I grow up, and in 1972, I'm watching the TV and my parents tuned on the Academy Awards. And it was a special Academy Awards where they were honoring Charlie Chaplin.
Wow.
He had been living in exile from this country that had booted him out. Can you imagine who would boot out Charlie Chaplin, right? But, you know, all I saw was the guy. They showed the clips because he was a white-haired old man at that time. They were giving him an honorary Academy Award. And I saw him, I saw the clips, and I just looked at my parents, take me there. Take me there. I want to go there right now. And, you know, it was quite emphatic, you know, and, you know, this is a person whose image, whose humor touched my heart and gave me hope and gave me an identity to be able to make people happy rather than come after me, you know, and try to beat me up. You know, I'm not some, you know, guy looking for trouble, but I will defend myself one-on-one. Give me a chance. Well, you got 3 guys on, or 5 guys on one. I did my best, Bruce. And I was so moved by that. And the Academy Awards that year were being held at the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion in downtown Los Angeles. My dad, working in the downtown area at the Krasny Jewelry Company, he said, look, he told my mother Lola, let me just take him around by the exterior of the building. Sometimes they have an artist exit, you know, maybe our son could see Chaplin there. So my dad, when we lived in Lincoln Heights, it's a 5-minute drive to the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion in downtown Los Angeles. And there we were, the lights, just like you see it today. And the searchlight going back and forth, and people and the barricades and the cops waving people along, moving along. And my dad rolled down the window and he asked the officer, is a place that my son could see maybe the actors coming out of an artist's exit, maybe meet Chaplin? He said, no way, buddy, no way. It's all barricaded here. And the best thing you can do is drive over to Sunset and La Brea. You can see the old Charlie Chaplin studios there. Now keep it moving, keep it moving. And my dad, well, at that point, you know, I got tears coming down my face, you know, oh, Charlie, like a scene in The Kid. And he drove over to Sunset La Brea. And sure enough, the old Charlie Chaplin studios were there. And my dad pulled up in front and I jumped out of the car, went up. There were some gates and I kind of held the gates. And well, then another car pulled up behind my daddy and it was a giant limousine. I looked over my shoulder. The black tinted windows came down. It was Chaplin.
Wow.
I ran over to the car. I'm just, it's so like I've got goosebumps. I put my hands the best I could on the window, and I said, Charlie, you know, I'm a comedian, you know, and he said, good luck, and drove away.
Wow, how inspirational is that? You are a generator, you're a creator, you get something in your mind, and it happened. You got to meet your major guy that you perhaps position yourself in life for and about.
Very much. And I'm glad that part of why I wanted to do this interview, I've been asked to do other interviews of similar programs, but they don't have your heart. They don't have your wisdom. They don't have your looking at the bigger picture and the scope of life. What are these precedents setting in motion for? You know, I'm a regular old, hey, I'm a person who has faith, but, you know, I'm not looking for, you know, makeup. Ooh, hey, there was something spooky happening here. I'm not looking for that. But there was something there that turned my life around when I was the guy who was the oddball out. He made me laugh. He made me feel loved through his film. And it was in my mind that I wanted to be like him, to make people laugh. And if that made me feel good, then I would make others feel good. And then to have that full circle moment at 10 years old in 1972, I'm a public figure. You can Google me and find out how old I am. I'm under 100. And that set in motion. I met Chaplin. Now for sure, I've got to come to this place called Hollywood. And my daddy took me home. He told my mom the experience. We couldn't believe it, you know, couldn't believe that Chaplin actually rolled up. It then was later determined that he did stop by the studio, I think before, because he wanted to see the old place before he went back to Switzerland, where he was retired and lived out the rest of his life. but it was a one in a lifetime experience, and I have that forever. But it's set in motion. Next stop, driver's license. I got to get a driver's license. I can't be dragging my dad to drive me around to this place called Hollywood. And at 15 and a half, I got my driver's license or driver's permit and headed out to Hollywood back in 1978. And when I knew, because our church that we would go to in downtown LA is at La Placita. It's a church there, and it's off the Hollywood freeway. So I thought, okay, Hollywood, that's where it says these, I would see the credits on the movies, you know, Hollywood. Okay, Hollywood freeway. So I just got on that and I drove, you know, no map, or no one told me where to go, how to get there. And it just Hollywood, next exit. I got off on the first exit, Sunset Boulevard of all places. Okay, now I'm driving down Sunset and I'm seeing Sunset Gower Studios, and the Hollywood sign is out this way. Holy smoke, I've only seen it on TV. But here it is. Oh my goodness. And then as I'm rolling past a little deeper down Hollywood on the right-hand side, I see the Comedy Store. Whoa. I turn a car around. The Comedy Store, a store of comedy. That's where I got to go. And I pulled over on Kings Road, which is a steep incline. I know you know it well. And I got many tickets there.
I lived on Kings Road.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I should have parked in your parking space. I probably would have saved so much in parking tickets. And then, you know, you take the hike down and right turn in front of the old Rock and Roll Hyatt. And then there was the Comedy Store. And I went in, and it was open mic night. And, you know, I signed up, and they a few people were talking at the ticket booth. And then a lady came over and instructed me that how old are you? And I said, well, I'm 16. You know, I was really 15 and a half, but I thought 16, at least I'm a legal something. I didn't want to get in trouble that I was waving around this driver's permit and not really legally supposed to be driving this far yet without a parent. So she said, you're too young. This is an over 21 club and you can't come in here. And I'm like, oh, okay. All right. Well, thanks. And I kind of turned around and kind of just moped away. And I kind of sat outside there by the front. And a little old lady saw this whole thing happen. And she came over to me, saw that I was very depressed and felt very frustrated in that situation. And she said, listen, what's the problem? And I said, well, you know, I'm only 16 and it's an over 21 club. And I want to do the open mic and do some of my jokes that I've been practicing at home. She goes, well, I know people here. So let me talk to the lady. And before I could stop her, I'm like, hey, lady, don't start any crap here. I mean, I want to come back to this place. She went, she talked to the lady in the ticket booth and all that. And I'm watching all this. And she comes back to me. She put her arm around me and she said, okay, I've talked to her. As long as you and I are together, you're fine. And I'm your grandmother, okay? And I go, okay, Grandma, what's your name? She said, Sally. Sally? Oh, Sally what? Sally Marr.
Wow.
Lenny Bruce's mother.
Wow.
I had no idea who Lenny Bruce was. I had no idea who Lenny Bruce was at that time, but I didn't know who Sally was. And so she was like my grandmother, walked me into the Comedy Store in the original room. And you remind me of my Lenny. You know, oh, okay, her son's trying to be a comedian too. I guess that's why she had an affection for me. I got up on stage, my 3 minutes. She was there with me. And I was really petrified. And a guy heckled me on my first time up, right out the gate. You look pretty young. And I don't know where it came from, Bruce, but just something inside blurted out, and you look pretty old. The audience erupted into a whole thunderous, round of laughter, and like a pilot that lit a fire, I knew I had this, and I've never let it go since.
So, other than that heckle and response, how did that first minute go? How'd the first 30 seconds? Do you remember? I'm sure you do. That first minute and that really, how did the 3 minutes go?
Well, I was terrified because first of all, I'm not supposed to be there. Now there's a lady I don't know that my parents probably wouldn't want me talking to strangers. And how am I going to get out of that or explain that? Then I'm thinking of my joke about, how my dad, every summer used to buy us a slip and slide and he'd aim it towards the wall, boom, boom. And then I get up, I grab the microphone, please, well, and here he is. And there's a pitter patter of applause. And so just take a beat to kind of gather my thoughts. And that gave somebody opportunity. You look kind of young. And gave me the raw nature of a comic that I'm not going to take this guy. This is my 3 minutes. I'm the guy with the microphone. I'm in control. Yeah, you look pretty old. And I got a big laugh. And from that point on, I got out a few jokes, got off before there was any trouble.
So you felt pretty good about your first time on stage?
Yes. Started out scary. Like most comedians, I think you're just trying to feel your legs up underneath you.
Well, that's pretty rare to have a good first spot. Although, from what I've heard, sometimes when their first spot is really good, they go back all full of piss and vinegar and they go on stage and they die. The second time, some of the comedians thought they couldn't do the same material, so they had to come up with a brand new 3 or 5 minutes that second time out, and it was awful. So it really is something that you had a good positive experience.
I did. The rest of my career sucked.
But the first 3 minutes was good.
I was ahead. Hey, and it's paid off. 43 years later, I'm talking to you. I've milked that 3 minutes a long way, baby,
So do you remember at all? Because lots of times, and sometimes when you're younger, you don't remember. Did you look around and see who else was at the Comedy Store that night?
Oh, well, very much so. I mean, once I kind of established that was a Monday night thing, I've grabbed my mama, my grandmama, she would call me J-Mala. Which, by the way, I would like to assert something here. I want to thank the Jewish American entertainment community, the club owners, the talent agents, managers, publicists, the writers, my fellow comics, and beyond, all the goy. If you don't know what a goy is, you are one, okay? And I want to thank everybody that helped me to take me under their wing. Because as opposed to some comedians who maybe started in their teens, 13, 14, 15, had the idea. I mean, I was one of the rare people that was actually on stage in the original room at the former Ciro's that hosted the greatest entertainers in Hollywood history. So it wasn't like I was just kind of getting up in the 8th grade comedy show. And there I was. The lady, by the way, that Sally Marr went up and talked to in the booth was Mitzi Shore herself.
Yes, of course.
And so all these people kind of were kind to me. They knew that this wasn't some kind of shady angle, and so the people that were there, sure, Johnny Dark, Tom Dreesen, the unknown comic, the first guy to bring me up on stage that night later, I didn't know at the time, was Lou Deck, who has gone on to be recognized in various movies about the Comedy Store, including the documentary that's recently come out, including other mutual comedian friends. Johnny Dark, who, I met because once I had my Monday night set up, I was always thinking what I learned from my showbiz mentors. Show business is 2 ways, show and business. So if it doesn't go over too good, shake it off, work on the bit. If it doesn't work, throw the whole bit out. Guess what? You can write another one. Jay Leno's most simple equation is so profound. Write joke, tell joke, get check.
Good.
All the way from
Jay is certainly someone to have fashioned yourself after. And if you were lucky enough to see and learn from people like Jay and Murray and Johnny, in the beginning, you had some good role models.
Thank you. And I feel the very same way about them. And they are, and they are and were. So, I realized that I needed to get a job because I always worked. I worked around the house. And then when I loved it, I'm going to sell my parents on, I'm coming out to Hollywood and I'm out here on my own. Then I'm not just goofing around and hanging out in nightclubs where maybe they wouldn't want me. I'm there to work. So I had to enlist myself right away and find some paying jobs to finance the Monday nights. And that's what I embarked on next. And what I did is I drove around up and down Hollywood. Whenever I think of an area or an industry I want to be in, I go and I get involved in who's in it and how do they do it and where's it done? Hence the Hollywood credits at the end of a movie. That's how I knew go to Hollywood Freeway, And so I was driving, I came across these arches driving down one of these Hollywood streets, and there I recognized the Paramount Studios logo. And I go, wow, that's where the Bob Hope is. And one of my other idols, my three idols, Charlie Chaplin, Johnny Carson, and Bob Hope. And so I pulled up there and I told the guard, hi, I'm a comedian. I want to get to where they do the casting. And he's like, well, do you have a headshot? A headshot? Well, no. Well, do you have an agent? Agent? Well, no, not yet. I'm going to, but not right now. Is your parent with you? Do you have a mom or dad that's kind of helping you with this, son? And I go, well, they're at work and at home. So no, not really. So can I go in? He said, no, not really. So he said, but what you can do is go around the guard gate here and then leave and don't come back until you have those other three things. And I said, well, those people, they're going in. How come I can't go where they're going? He goes, those people are going to a TV show taping. They have tickets. Well, what about the people that's standing there with the clipboards, and the counters? Well, they work for the company. Well, what's the name of that company? And he said, Headhunters. I said, okay, Headhunters. So I went and I parked around the block. And I ran back around up to the line where the people were. And I talked to the person with the clipboard. And I said, hi, do you know where Headhunters is? He goes, well, I work for Headhunters. I'm Robbie Robinson. This guy had more jewelry than Zales jewelry. He had rings, watches, necklaces, and his gold around his glasses. And I said, well, hey, I want to get audiences. I'm good with attracting people to get them in to see the shows. And that's what I want to do. And he goes, all right. And so I started handing out tickets in front of Grauman's Chinese Theater on Hollywood Boulevard. And the way that we would get paid is they give you like 500 tickets and you write your initials on the back and then you give them out to as many people as possible. So when people actually show up, they can then determine how much to pay you based on how many people came from your tickets. So if you had 38 JMs on the back of the tickets for a live taping of Laverne and Shirley or Happy Days or Mork and Mindy, you get $38. I got $1 a head. And that's how I started with that job. But while I was at Paramount Studios, I asked people, where's Bob Hope? Where's Johnny Carson? Where's the Henny Youngman and Uncle Milty? And he said, son, they're not here at these studios anymore. Those were made years ago, but they all do hang out at a place called the Friars Club. I thought, the Friars Club? Wait a minute, you mean like the Dean Martin roasts? Because my dad used to put that on because we love watching Don Rickles and all the comedians. And so I headed to Beverly Hills. That's where the Friars Club was. And I got there and right away, looking for a job. That's my way in. I already know the angle. I'm not going to be able to be let in because I'm not over 18 or 21, let alone I didn't even realize at that point it was a members only club. I got there and the guy rolled up and right away goes, are you here? You're not dressed. We start at 4 o'clock. I said, start what? He goes, are you a valet? I said, yes, of course, I'm a valet. Thinking I could put my driver's license to work. And so right away, they put me in a red jacket, similar to this. And there they were, comedy legends rolling up to me. Uncle Milty, Shecky Green, Red Buttons, Sid Caesar, Alan King. And then after I parked their cars, and the show got going, I got to kind of go inside and watch these guys work. Legendary. And they just loved being together, and they got each other's humors, and they would stay eating and drinking till they had to leave. But they couldn't leave until, they heard my joke on the way out because I had the keys to their car.
Ah, very nice. Very nice. That's such an interesting approach. And, you got to do what you have to do to get to where you want to go. And everybody has a different approach. And that's not such a bad one after all. Getting to meet those people and being able to tell them a joke, not bad.
Well, certainly it made it feel so much more of a reality because the people I was seeing on TV, and you remember a wonderful time in broadcasting television comedy history, when really, and what we're to maybe segue into something else here, I'm a very positive person. I look at things in the best light as possible. We had the greatest generation, hands down, from 1980 to 89 of the greatest stand-up comedians. Why was that? My opinion is because that was the last decade of show business. We were standing on the shoulders of watching all of our idols. We're all senior citizens, from the great Jewish American comedians from the Borscht Belt, vaudeville, and then segued onto television. And so when we would see all the other great entertainers like Sammy Davis Jr., Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, and many others, and you mentioned Willie, Tyler, and Lester, who I can share about working with them as well. But this is who our idols were. Whereas maybe in the recent decade, you have social media driving, there was only about 300 comedians nationwide back in the late 70s. And then now we have 300,000. I'm all for more people bringing happy and laughs into the world, but it's not the same quality. And the vibe is not the same. And I think it's because they're standing on the shoulders of other social media video clips of maybe a squirrel who's surfing on a lake. How much life experience are they going to bring to that level of life experiences?
It's a very good point that the people in the 80s built upon high experienced people. They built upon people that broke through barriers, people that were just quality. You mentioned Bob Hope, you mentioned these kinds of people. And when I interview the comedians, they talk about Laurel and Hardy, they talk about Abbott and Costello, and sometimes the Three Stooges. But they formulated their plan off of some super, super performers, Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin. And you said something that really hit home for me, that the comedians from 2000, 2010, 2020, who are they formulating themselves after? People that didn't have quite the professionalism and quite the success that those other ones I just mentioned.
Yes. And there are some great 3 to 5 names. It's the same ones that come up that we know of. They're wonderful, bright comedians and that I enjoy, but it seems that a lot of the others are the same. But during the 80s, there was only one pit bull comedian, there was, one Reverend Sam Kennison, comedian, right? One Arsenio Hall, Eddie Murphy, Keenan Ivory Wayans, Jerry Seinfeld, Paul Reiser, Roseanne Barr, and a plethora of other great comedians that really filled the spectrum. The Milky Way is made of much more than just the bright stars that we see. There's a lot of the fill-in talent that also shine brightly. And I don't have any airs or differences. I'm very proud of the role I played. I was not one of the big popular headliners, but I knew one thing. No one liked going on first, Bruce. Nobody. So there's a get the kid. He's got 10, 15 minutes. He's funny enough to get him going, but he's not funnier that we can't follow. So rather than look at that as a negative, how can then Jamie be the best warm-up comic? How can I be the best opening act to make that better for Jerry, to make that better for Howie, one of your clients, or make that better for Roberta Kent, a great female stand-up comic, and Sandra Bernhard, and many of the other people of the late 70s as we start to segue the story into the 80s. Sinbad, all these people who I opened for, I had to do my job. My job was not to upstage them, be funnier than them. My job was to get that audience going. And when they're at a cold, dead start, they haven't even had a sip of their drink. And to get loosened up and relaxed, it's the first guy that sets the tone for the night. MCs are very underrated. We do a double duty. Not only do we have to go out there when that audience is cold, and we have to warm them up with our own material, and then we have to bring up the other acts. We're doing double duty. And we're on that stage for 2 hours. And whether the audience gets up, or whether you're able to bring that audience up to get them ready for then the feature act and then the headliner, it's your job. And if you got them cooking, keep the ball rolling. If the middle brought down the crowd, that MC's got to bring that crowd back up so that the headliner, who's been sitting through the opener in the middle and it doesn't have to take on the audience and dig them out for the first 15, 20 minutes. And I'm proud that I was responsible to making that ride a little easier so that headliner can go and give a great job and be called back to headline again, and that the audience is left. We saw a great show. Usually the opening guy's kind of not that great, and the middle guy's better, and the headliner's the best. But when people left our shows, I'm glad to say that I set a tone where they felt that it was a great show through and through.
That's great. That's really super. The Bobby Slayton grew up just a couple miles from where I grew up, and we've kind of tracked each other over the years. He was kind enough to do this show, and so many of the people that you mentioned have done the show. By the way, if you can get Paul Reiser to do the show, he was a client. Maybe you can give him a call.
After this, for sure, making more time as things open up and that you're creating this platform for us to tell our stories. Certainly at first, probably people are concerned, but you've had some great interviews with some great people. And I'll move quickly into mentioning some of those people in my storytelling and that as well. So now I'm getting up on stage at the Friars Club, and now I'm ad-libbing, and Milty would look at me and say, the kid from the Chicano kid from Valet Parking wants to get up and do some jokes.
Wow.
And these guys are like, they're amused. And I get up there in the red jacket and everything. And Milty looks at me, did you clean out the back seat? No, why not? The hookers are still using it. These are bits that I saw them do that now I'm doing their lines. And there was that gleam in their eye because they saw this young kid, like when they were in the Catskills, like when they were, in back east and growing up in the Bronx and so many places that the Jewish American comedians had that wanting to take an audience, but they were still kind of just in their teens themselves. So they saw a little bit. They always said, Jaime is Sephardic. He's got to be Sephardic. He's a little bit Jewish somehow, some way. and I'm proud to say, what a great honor that would be. But I'm a proud all-American Latino boy next door. My father from Laredo, Texas, Mexican-American, and my mother, like I say, the Shiksa from Guadalajara. But I was raised by a wild pack of Jews at the Friars Club, and there I was ad-libbing. Then the ABC, food and beverage, those people, alcoholic beverage guys with a badge. That kid can't be up on that stage.
Ooh.
He's not. The manager right away, I want to say Leonard Pinner or somebody that was there. Said, he's our valet. So we smoothed over that time. And then the manager took me aside, said, kid, you can't get up on that stage anymore. Okay. You hear me? You do your job. You stay out there. Well, no, I'm only doing this job because I need to be in here with my mashfuka. Right. And they go, no, then you're going to be fired. So feeling very down and depressed, I waited outside. And then finally I saw Uncle Milty. He came out. I went and I told him what happened. He went and he talked to the manager. I said, no, kid, there's nothing we can do. Can't mess with that. We can't get shut down. And but I want to be with you guys.
Now, a quick word from one of our sponsors. Hey, gang, I've been told by a lot of the comedians I knew and represented during the 80s I looked the same as I did 40 years ago. And come to think of it, I still have my thick brown hair and just a few wrinkles. But most importantly for me, by simply applying the completely safe human growth hormone homeopathic gel on my skin just 2 times a day, the depression and panic attacks I suffered from years ago were gone in just 2 weeks. And then I started deep sleeping for many hours at night. You can have the gel work for you too. To find out more, contact me at bruce@brucestarproductions.com.
Listen, calm down, calm down. Look, my friend, she runs the Playboy Club, which is right across the street. And if you remember the old Friars Club, Beverly Hills on Santa Monica Boulevard at Charlieville, across the street was Century City. And within the Twin Towers of our Century City was located a Playboy Club. And in there worked a town quarter named Tracy Morgan. And not Tracy Morgan, the comedian,
Right.
obviously.
Right.
And this lady, so he goes, let me call her. I'll tell her you're a good MC. She needs MCs because nobody wants to go on first. Everybody wants the headline, and she'll put you on over there. So, okay, I feel like the tears dry. I head over there, and they have a very glamorous setting. Now, if you can imagine a teenage kid walking into the Playboy Club, most of us were just hoping to maybe find our uncle's Playboy magazine under the couch or something and get a quick glance at it. And I was walking in, and there they were wearing their outfits, everybody very well dressed and very classy. And I said, "Are you Tracy Roberts?" It was one of these gorgeous bunnies. And she said, no, that's Tracy over there. And that lady looked like she was a bunny, like way at the beginning of bunny years. She had still the body, but it was all kind of like, an 80-year-old version.
It happens, it happens.
Yes, right. And 80 is great. Age is just a number, baby. Okay. I know 25-year-old people, old, but it's your spirit. That's what got to keep alive. And so I went up to the lady, "Hi, I'm Jamie, and Uncle Milty sent me." And she's like, "Oh, so you're the MC. How long you know Milty?" Gives me kind of a third degree. I go,
Good reference. Good reference.
Right? Yeah. And I thought, well, maybe she's hardballing me here. I thought I'm a shoe-in here, right? And so Fine says, "Okay, here's the list. These are the people going on." And I go backstage, and backstage happened to be right where the bunnies' dressing rooms were, behind the curtains. So I'm like, oh my goodness. Well, okay, well, I'll just kind of linger here and wait for my spot because I don't want to be out with the crowd. And, I go up on stage and please, ladies and gentlemen, welcome Vic Damone. And please welcome, hey, here comes Don Rickles. I mean, these are the drop-in guests. And I'm just like in show business Mecca. Then they told me there's a comic coming on who's a little different. So, just be ready in case he has to get off. And I go, "Okay, ladies and gentlemen," just read it just like that. "Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this guy's a little different. And but sit back and you're going to enjoy. Please welcome Willie Tyler and Lester." And there was some pittering. Nobody knew who that was compared to the other names I was bringing up. And Willie Tyler and Lester came up. First of all, they were black. At that time, in 1978, it was kind of a little bit of a jolt. And he was a ventriloquist. We never seen a black ventriloquist, let alone Lester. And he starts going into a routine, and with his very smooth, warm demeanor, Willie just started to charm the audience and get them into buying the ad libs and the repertoire between him and Lester. And that's when it rang out to me that, wow, show business is tougher for different people, and that laughter has no color boundaries. And when I got on, after he got off, I gave him the kind of recognition that I was giving the others. "Willie Teller Lester, what a huge star, born right here in front of all of you. Thank you and good night." Because I didn't want to lessen my interview the way other at times people thought, kind of cool it because this is an uncertain act. And at that point, I also learned that women were treated very much like second-class citizens in show business. So when I got out of the Playboy Club and I started up my own comedy nights thinking, I hate kind of running under the radar at these bars. I've got to start opening Jaime Monroy live stand-up comedy. And I started opening restaurants with comedy nights. On Monday night, we were at Casoli's in Marina Del Rey. Then out in Malibu at the Casa Adobe Malibu, Tuesday nights. Wednesday night, we're out at Robbins in Pasadena. And I just went all over the Los Angeles County area, starting open mic nights that sold food in restaurants and sold food. So me being there was not an issue. Now I don't have the, any problems on my ass. I can go in and perform and feel free. And then furthermore, I'm now booking the people that were underrepresented or undervalued. I put Rosie O'Donnell on. I put Rhonda Shear on. I put Jenny Jones on. I put many people into those places. And when I played a college gig and some nice little Jewish boy came up, I want to be a comedian. Now I was looking at him. I'm in my mid-20s, okay? And I'm looking at him the way I thought of myself in 1978. And I thought, okay, well, just you can do it, kid. Thanks. And we did have a good show here tonight at the college. And then he followed me out. And I said, well, what do you want? He goes, well, I can't get up anywhere. I don't know anybody here. I said, okay, well, you know me. Come to this place. I'll put you on. I walked to my car. He then followed me to my car. He says, I don't have a car. I said, well, now you don't have anywhere to go. You don't know anybody here. Now you don't have a car. Well, okay, look, dude, write down where you live. I will pick you up. I'll put you on one time, but then you're going to meet some people and take it from there. Okay? Okay. So I pick up this kid at his house and I drive him to the LA Cabaret, which was Encino, the former, Laugh Stop, and later the Herman's Cabaret, who I worked for Herman Bursky. And I got there and I read, okay, you ready, kid? Okay, here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, here's a new guy coming up. Give him a chance. It's his first time up here doing stand-up. Please welcome Judd Apatow. Judd, come on up. I did the same thing for Paul Feig, did the same thing for many other comedians that needed a break to get up on stage when no one else would have them at the primary places, like where I met you at the Improv and the Comedy Store. And the Laugh Factory was just inching along. I'd like to digress to meeting you at the Improv because I was 17 years old with a crumpled up $10 bill at the bar there on Melrose, a Hollywood Improv. And just looking across the room, you could just kind of see the buzz. And I thought, as long as I'm in here, I'm not rocking the boat, they can't throw me out. And then I could see how it all works over here since I already know how it works over at the Comedy Store. So I see there's stars there, we would at least see stars at the Improv. And then I see this comedian who I recognize from the Merv Griffin show. And I'm like, wow, I'm hanging with this guy. And I go, look, there's, what is it, Starsky from Starsky and Hutch. Holy smoke, they're starting. The guy with the mustache, that's not Paul Michael Glaser. I said, that's Starsky from Starsky and Hutch. He's got the hair and the same look, and there's stars here. You just don't know. And the guy with the mustache, he's my roommate. I'm Barry Martyr, and that's Bruce Starr. And that's when I saw you. But if you cue up a picture of you and Paul Michael Glaser, you guys had the same, beautiful, style hair and the same chiseled out face. And I mistake you for Starsky.
It didn't get me anywhere, but thank you for that memory.
But then after that, then I started to ascertain who Bud was and who Mark Leno was. And the difference was really between the Comedy Store and the Improv. And there was an unspoken kind of tone. Either you're with us or you're with them. Mm-hmm. And that was disappointing because once again, I just felt like, hey, it's tough enough to get laughs. Now we got to fall into this certain kind of either you're with us or them. But I did notice that the way that the business was run and the type of comedians at the Improv were very different. Mitzi Shore had a very loose, free, artistic ambiance. No, this is my fat comedian. This is an Asian comedian. This guy's the Russian comedian, and this guy is sarcastic. She kind of let you do your own thing, you know, and develop from there. And then she would sprinkle and put stuff on you. She's the one who gave me my last name, because I didn't want to be known as some very limiting stereotype of comedian. Cheech from Cheech and Chong Up in Smokes kind of left that image for Latinos. And my mother and father were not like that at all. And many of the people in East LA are not like that at all. Very proud and hardworking, contributing members of American society. And I thought that, I don't want to have to be considered Latino if I only look a certain way, sound a certain way, act a certain way. I just want to be a comedian who's a proud Latino. Very much like you mentioned Jay Leno. Jay Leno didn't come out to host the Tonight Show. Hey, it's a good evening to you all tonight, huh? We got a hush show for you. And Jerry Seinfeld never came out and did, hey, it's those boys from Bageltown. He was just a brilliant, brilliant monologist and still is. And my biggest admiration about Jerry is how he's never cussed on stage to get a laugh. And I'm not a prude. I've seen and worked with everybody.
That's right.
But what a true talent to be a wordsmith, an observation smith, and be able to tell a story and say without a foul language to get the laugh.
Mm-hmm.
And so I noticed that Bud's and Mark Leno's improv seemed to have order to it. When you're going on and what type of material you're going to do and also your dress code. There was an improv dress code, and it was pretty much a sport coat, a shirt, jeans, and tennis shoes. Sport coat, a t-shirt, jeans, and tennis shoes. And where you were over at the Comedy Store, you had people carrying leather jackets, a bottle of some booze or something, or a pistol, as though anything kind of went over there. Broke those stereotypes that were great monologists, equal to like a Jerry Seinfeld. Argus Hamilton deserves his respect. And Alan Bursky, what a brilliant young man to not only embark on his talent as a comedian, but to have actually appeared on the Tonight Show at age 18. I couldn't have done that and didn't. Byron Allen, also another person, deserves his credit. Mike Binder. So there were some young kids, but like myself, but they were the ones who got a chance to be more themselves. Whereas I felt the improv, there was more order than disorder. But the disorder worked great because you got great comics that came out of the Comedy Store, like Jackson Purdue, like Jimmy Schubert, like Felicia Michaels. These are all my pals, and many more.
Jimmy moved down to South Florida here.
He needs a tan.
So I saw him the night I saw Bruce Smirnoff, and I didn't know Jimmy. I got to tell you a funny story. I go into what would be called the green room, but it was just a room off to the side, and I hadn't seen Bruce Smirnoff in a couple of years. He was in there, and I sit down on a bed, and off to my right was an older guy who wasn't saying a word, and I'm thinking, who is this? He's, all gray, and it turns out to be Don Gavin. And Don is the godfather of Boston comedy, but that night he was really quiet. And then this guy walks in with a jacket and a tie, looking like Nines, and I said, "Who is he? Is he the mayor of the comedy club or something?" He's like, he really looked good. I didn't know these people except Bruce Smirnoff. Richmond and Vini was there, and the show starts. I go outside, and I see Don Gavin absolutely kill Smirnoff. Just murdered them, and then Jimmy finished the night. Did probably twice as long as everybody else, but he was incredible. And that was the very first night of entertainment after this mess of whatever they want to call it. And it was great to see these guys come back so strong after Bruce said I hadn't worked in a year. And he was pacing. He was so nervous. He was pacing. And then when he went out on stage, listen, I'd seen Bruce perform for years and years. Never saw him funnier.
Yes, yes. When you've got it, you always have it. I don't like when they say former comedians about any of my comedian friends that maybe are not working currently. But is Bob Newhart no longer a comedian because he hasn't been on stage in a decade or longer? I think when you're a comic, it's something that you have innately born in you. It's some kind of gene, and you always have it in you, whether you're acting on it. Pablo Picasso was painting paintings until he got tired of making paintings. He started making vases, and he's no longer a painter, So those of us that moved into other areas that become writers and producers and directors, I felt that the Comedy Store did give people a chance to explore different personas. And that's when then we saw the next wave, the African Americans, like I mentioned, Eddie Murphy and Arsenio Hall. But I remember Eddie bringing me Chris Rock at one of my open mic spots that I had. Okay, bring this cat on. And boy, he just ripped it. Keenan Ivory Wayans and Damon, the Mooney Twins, and of course, Paul. And then I thought, because I came from a religious background, there was a guy I met who was a preacher. And I thought, well, I can stay close to him. It's Sam Kinison. Who knew, that he was not rolling as a preacher that time. But what a brilliant, unique persona. And all the boys that ran with him. Of course, Alan Steven, what a brilliant guy. And these are all my brothers. And the gals are my sisters. And so I then started, well, where's Jamie in all this? There were different shows. I got into doing TV warm-ups. And there was the king of warm-ups, Bob Perlow. You couldn't walk on any set at any TV show that Bob Perlow's name wasn't either mentioned or on a door of a dressing room. He was that guy. But because I got a chance to, my day job, when I wasn't working the clubs and doing all that we've talked about here, a buddy from high school got me an opportunity as a page at KTLA, Golden West Television, KTLA. So that was my that was my day gig. And when I would go to KTLA, there was all these shows being taped. And quickly, because I was working the clubs at night, did I embrace a friendship with Marty Cohen.
Oh, my God.
Yes, Marty and I became inseparable brothers. And he was playing the character on a all-new music countdown show called Solid Gold. And he played Party and Marty Hardy. And I loved it because now he and I would trade stories about, hey, we were at the Comedy Store the other night. I'm going to be at Westwood. So meet me there after the taping. So now I had, it was a beeline. Marty and I hung out and he was on stage there and he's on the show here. And I'm with him. I'm just steps away from stardom. Stardom. Like many of us. But we were in the game. And these are the people who also was a great role model. He was a brilliant comedian. And then he was working on Make Me Laugh. And there I ran into Bob Saget and your guy, Howie Mandel, Bruce Baby Man Baum, who on the breaks would come out from the side stage door, still wearing the diapers and smoking a cigar, and called out, "Lunch!" And I go, this is show business. This is crazy. And I love every second of it. And they became my big brothers and sisters and still are to this day.
Did Marty introduce you to John Mercedes?
Of course. There was a great Latino, Cuban, American, the great John Mercedes, who was a publicist, and not just any publicist. He really took on clients when they were unknowns, like Charlene Tilton, who we met in a t-shirt shop on Hollywood Boulevard. And John was a very petite sized man, barely 5'2", but his ego was 6'9".
I work for him, I know.
And you survived to talk about it.
Barely.
Yes. But, it takes that kind of chutzpah, belief, believe in yourself, think positive and have faith and go out there and do it. I'm not good in therapy. I don't like talking about it. Let's make a plan. We're going to meet with Bruce on Thursday at 1:00. We're going to get the audio to work, and not until it works are we going on. And that's how it went down today. And I'm still that way. So John Mercedes was one of the brilliant publicists that he was not with Rogers and Cowan. He was not one of the big shots like Jay Bernstein. He was a little guy who became a big guy. And he owned his own jet. I went to his home that he lived up in Mulholland with the parties and all the swanky people. I just have been very blessed to pursue my goal, my dreams that became goals. Because I do believe that they just can't be dreams. They got to be a goal. Otherwise, you're just wasting time.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't mean that you can't, put so much pressure on yourself you got to do it or else. If something doesn't work out, I learned to cultivate the art of flexibility. If it doesn't work out one way, know you gave it your best shot and try it another way. I've heard some of the interviews of some of the other people, like the wonderful Paul Provenza. Wow, what a dynamic talent. And, having his shot and his rise through the other comedians to get on the Tonight Show. And then to have other shows that he wanted to be on, but maybe didn't pan out that way. He created his own shows. He created his own theater productions. He's traveled all over the world. He took his talent and cultivated it in different ways. So if I couldn't be the headliner, I was going to be the best damn opening act. If I couldn't be the star on a sitcom, then I'm going to be the best warm-up guy. Myself and Ray Combs deserves his acknowledgement. He liked me very much because I didn't drink, smoke, or do drugs. I was not one of those guys. And unfortunately, and I know you will attest to that as well.
I tell a funny story because I left the business and, I was, my roommate was Barry Martyr for 3 or 4 years or something. And then my mom passed away. And when that happened, it was like it shook me up and I decided I didn't want to be in the business anymore and I left. So it was not too many people just step away. I had the experience with John Mercedes, working with him. And, to work with John, you had to be willing to turn your life upside down and inside out to be a player in the business. And some of my most exciting moments were working with him, some of the things he introduced me to. Tell me about one or two of the most exciting times that you had.
Well, we were getting right about there. When I was working with Marty, people then on the set, on the show, which, by the way, the legendary producers that were working, the shows that Bob Perlow was working, we're talking about legendary producers, okay? We're talking about, Arnie Sultan, and that worked on Get Smart with Buck Henry. I'm talking about, I worked with Hal Cantor, who worked with Bob Hope on many other sitcoms. And those are the people that were the producers. Howard Leeds of all, and many other people that were doing the kids shows. And that's where I was kind of inching my way of being this teen comic to get onto a sitcom. And because there were all those young shows like Different Strokes and Give Me a Break. And then I got a call to do, Marty Cohen, who was playing the role on Solid Gold, which he was doing some great bits of comedy in between the countdowns with the dancers. And basically, I was then, when Marty moved on from the show, they came to me and they said, Jamie, we want you to warm up the crowd. It's Solid Gold. And it was bittersweet. I was like, yeah, I want to do that. And I go, ooh, I better check with Marty. Because I'm a loyal guy. I don't want anybody to think I circumvented them or I went around people's back. I'm not like that. I just do my best and hope that the right people come to me to hire me to do what I do. Not that I'm not ambitious. I'll put myself out there, but I don't undercut other people. Certainly, I've never found any other comedian or performer as a threat or competition. Just another brother or sister in this artistic endeavor, And I've helped more. I'm more of a helper. I like lifting up others, giving people those jobs at all those little open mic places that I started that help to scrape together the phone bill or pay the rent or food on the table. I take pride in that. So when I got the call, Marty said, yeah, I was done with that show. I'm doing Vegas. I'm opening for Chubby Checker at the Sands.
I was there. He took me to see Chubby.
Right?
Yeah.
And Marty.
I was there. He took me to Las Vegas and I met Chubby.
So you were there, you were all part of that. Meanwhile, guess who's stuck working back at home? Jamie. So Marty left the void, which, hey, now I'm stepping into a professional comedian's shoes. And this was my first professional job as a comedian in television. And at that time, I was 18 years old, the youngest TV warm-up guy in TV history. Over on Alice, the television show, was David Letterman. Over on Bosom Buddies was Bob Saget.
Wow.
Bob Perlow was warming up everything else. And Jaime Monroy there. Welcome to Solid Gold. I grabbed the microphones. I've seen Marty do it 100 times. And I noticed the audience didn't react the way they normally do. And I said, well, good afternoon and welcome to Solid Gold. Nothing. And I could see the audio guy in the back. So, I had to turn on the switch to the mic. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Jimmy, and welcome to Solid Gold. And they all broke out into applause. And I've been gone since then. And the warm-ups led one thing to another. But then it was, where's my sitcom? But I was being seen by all these entertainers. Because who do we have on in the early 80s? Unknowns named Billy Idol, the Go-Go's, Rick Springfield, Whitney Houston. So they would see me doing my stuff. And, I have this kind of, artistic kind of vibe. And they go, we don't need one of the, I don't want to say unhip or older comics, but I just fit something to fit more with their crowd. And so all of a sudden, my opening gigs went from working with Milty and Don Rickles, and then the next generation of young people in the 70s, like Willie Tyler Lester, who I mentioned, and Robin Williams, and those people. Then all of a sudden, I had my own audience, so to say, that connected with my vibe and my material. And there I was opening for the biggest pop stars of the 80s. And then the call came to open for the biggest pop star of all time, Michael Jackson.
Wow. How did that come about?
Well, a comedian. I have to give credit to another comic. I was told by other comics, but some of the big stuff, people I think like to keep it for themselves. But there's a very funny comedian named Fred Goss. Fred Goss was married to Arlene Schuster, and they had she was part of a very, very prestigious casting company, ASG, and it stood for Arlene Schuster, ASG Casting. And they were very powerful. And so, Fred was moonlighting, helping his wife with the casting business, as I understood it. And they landed the job to cast, this Michael Jackson $15-20 million ad campaign.
Wow.
And we need people. And they brought out 10,000 people to mimic they were going to shoot a live concert, but it had to be under the control of a film shoot for these 5 commercials for Pepsi. So Michael had worked with a juggler I want to acknowledge
Dennis Blair,
a very, very talented comedian on the guitar. He had opened for the Jackson 5.
Wow.
He was on the Victory Tour.
He didn't tell me that when he did my show.
Oh, he's got his wonderful book out, Opening for Legends, and he's a tremendous talent. I don't nitpick over people, whether they play a guitar or they do magic and they're funny, whatever. If you're getting laughs and you're making people happy, hey, more power. I love you. Just don't cuss out the crowd. Don't leave things in a negative, bad tone. That sucks, not only for the crowd, but for your fellow comics who have to follow you. That I understand that people come up and have their own persona, monologists that have their own tone. I get it. But when you're when you're your show, you do your thing. But if you're in a lineup with other people, I prefer to have just a good energy all the way through. And if not, then it's my job to bring it back. But Dennis Blair opened for the Jacksons' Victory Tour, which is very different than I opened for Michael Jackson, the king of pop, solo artist.
Wow.
Way, I'm not trying to skirt anybody of their credit. Dennis deserves his credit because to get out in front of any Jackson, is pretty significant. And
Did
so,
you get to spend any time with him?
oh yes, we were like brothers for the next 3 years that I worked with him.
Wow.
And because then first it started with the live concerts, and then it went into live tapings of Dirty Diana video. If you see the concert footage of that stuff, somebody had to keep that crowd entertained during the 12-hour shoot.
Wow.
And then when you look at the other Come Together, anything where there's a crowd, somebody was there in between those shots, because nothing is shot all in one take.
Exactly.
And they did have a juggler before, and those crowds get pretty nasty. They pop off a shoe and it throws something up on stage, and the juggler just kind of ran off and hid. So Frank DeLeo with the cigars, we need somebody who's not afraid of the microphone. And they had read, because I was opening, there was a feature article in the LA Times about comedian that was opening for all these rock stars, and they crowned me the rock star comic. And so DeLeo was like, get me that guy. And since I was working in Encino at the LA Cabaret, Michael Jackson lived around the block on Havenhurst.
Yeah.
And so DeLeo came around the block, sat there, watched me, and he called the club, found out, hey, when's the Jamie guy there? He's here all night tonight. He came over there, sat in the back with his ponytail. And when I came out after the show, he goes, how would you like to open for Michael Jackson?
Oh, my God.
I'm like, yeah. And I'd like to open for,
sure.
I'd like to open for Frank Sinatra too. Thanks. I didn't know who this little guy was, with the attitude spoke. I thought he was just drunk. And he walked over. He goes, listen, if you walk away from me again, you're not going to get up. And I met those guys before. These guys. So I was like, yes, sir. What is the meaning of all this? And then he explained to me, I'm Frank DeLeo. I'm manager to Michael Jackson. We've got about 10,000 of people coming to shoot a live concert that Michael's going to be in. But we need to be taking direction from Joe Pytka, who was one of the biggest, legendary commercial directors. But we need somebody to run interference, somebody to keep that audience up and happy and entertained. And
Wow.
You're clean, you look good up on the stage, and you're the guy. What do you charge for this? And I said right away, Robbie Robertson, when I handed out tickets in front of Grauman's Chinese Theater, came back to me, 16 years old. I said, $1 a head.
Good.
A cigar flew out of his mouth. Hey, then we got thousands of people. We're going to pay you thousands,
Yeah.
Get up there and entertain them for thousands of hours, You better be good. Or you're out of there,
Wow.
And I work with DeLeo and MJ. And that's his picture, by the way. That's me and MJ right here.
Ah, very nice.
And ironically enough, our initials backwards are the same. He's MJ and I'm JM. Very interesting. That's one of those things. What does that mean? Who knows? Coincidence? Or is it not? Because out of all the comedians who got sitcoms, out of all the comedians that maybe got parts of movies, the ones who got the Tonight Show, the people that are mentioned, like the great comedians like Rich Scheidner and many of the other comedians that I've mentioned. And forgive me if I've left out any of you. There's so many of you great, amazing comedians. But none of you opened for the King of Pop, Michael Jackson. That was my spot.
Wow.
And I take it with pride. And he was a wonderful person that wanted to bring. He goes, I sing, I dance, and you make them laugh. That's like the kind of show that I want my audience to feel.
Wow.
That's the kind of person he was. And he really just wanted to use his fame, his talent to bring people together. And all the rest is just money grabs and not true.
Right. I believe that 100%.
Yes. And I'm so privileged to have known him, to be on stage, because we'd pass each other and he'd giggle and laugh because I'd make him laugh off stage. We would do stuff like in between takes, sometimes during breaks. He was a prankster, and I had to come up with some pranks. So basically I would punch holes in the bottom of paper cups and then stick them back in the water cooler And then Michael would tell his assistant, Bill Bray, Bill, can you get us 3 cups of cold water? We're having a meeting in here. And Bill would waltz over, pull a cup, put water, and the water would drip all the way down his pants. And we would be looking out the window through the trailer. The kids laughing. I was 24, he was 27.
Beautiful.
Biggest star in the world then and now. Because I love the new artists today, but nobody brings people together the way Michael Jackson did.
No.
And I really feel that was something, a very special interaction that I had with that superstar. And like I did interacting with some of these great comedians that went on, like Richard Pryor, who only said very little to me, but it was serious. I've seen you several times here on Monday night, my brother. Don't you ever lose that warmth. All these other guys, you see them? They angry. They nasty. You sweet. And you got all that love inside. I got that too.
Very nice.
Don't ever lose that.
Very nice.
So I maybe could be more edgy. I maybe could be a lot of things, but I just got to be me. And I can accept how far that's taken me. All the way to now, I've moved the act from warm-ups to opening act to now I'm interviewing the stars on the red carpet.
You know, Jaime, I hope that you're super, super proud of not just your career, but the way you've lived your life with honor and integrity, because a lot of people in show business are going to be exposed for not living their life with honor and integrity. And you can feel just fine about that, because I'm a bigger admirer of yours. I'm happy to have had you on the show and to have heard your experience. And I really appreciate the time that you're spending with me.
Thank you so much. It's a great honor to be with you. Thank you for that, shining that same bright light, bringing all of us together. And this is just the beginning. There'll be more tapings, and I'll refer any and all of the best comics to you. And thank you for letting me share some of my personal life, which I don't share too often, but I felt comfortable here in the platform you've created because it all has a reason. How did I get to go where I went, and what came of it, and where am I now? And I like that.
Well, again, Jaime, God bless, and we will be connected to each other. We will stay in communication, and I want to thank you for being on the 80s golden age of comedy. God bless. Goodbye, everybody. We'll see you again real soon. Bye-bye, everybody.
Good night. God bless you.
Now, a quick word from one of our sponsors. Hey, gang, I've been told by a lot of the comedians I knew and represented during the 80s I looked the same as I did 40 years ago. And come to think of it, I still have my thick brown hair and just a few wrinkles. But most importantly for me, by simply applying the completely safe human growth hormone homeopathic gel on my skin just 2 times a day, the depression and panic attacks I suffered from years ago were gone in just 2 weeks. And then I started deep sleeping for many hours at night. You know, you can have the gel work for you too. To find out more, contact me at bruce@brucestarproductions.com.